We all have had those moments where we feel like we've been completely undermined by one of our team members. Whether it's during a POE after you spend a full hour explaining your recommendations, only to have the doctor come in and recommend a completely different course of action, or as you're checking a patient out and you're telling the front office what it is that you completed today, and then they go, oh, that's not what was scheduled. I'll go ahead and fix that. Those are frustrating situations, and they can be really challenging to deal with. So we're going to give you some actionable tips that you can use to be able to deal with these difficult coworkers that it seems like they're undermining you.
At the Dental MVP, we use science to teach people skills to you, the dental professionals. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel, the Dental MVP, and don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss out.
When undermining behavior exists, it really can sabotage the entire team. It is natural when it feels like someone undermined us, we tend to retract and pull in.
Oh, yeah.
We shut down. And then if anything, we tend to kind of get like this little bits of sabotaging revenge where it's like, okay, well, they did that, so I'm not going to help them with this, or I'm not going to give them any information, or I'll just let them do what they want to do.
No, we don't do that.
And it might feel good, like momentarily, but it doesn't help anybody. It really doesn't support the team as a whole. And if anything, it creates more work that we're going to have to go back and fix things later on. So the best thing to do is really to address it from the beginning. So we're going to go through a few tips on how to do that.
First things first, don't just jump right in and have a conversation with this person or attack. No attacking. What we want to do is we really want to stay calm and look inwardly for a second and just kind of calm ourselves down and then be able to really observe the situation. What just happened? Did they intend what they were saying? Did they maybe just kind of jump in and not have all the information? Were they trying to be helpful and they just did it in a way that felt wrong to you? Like really kind of take that outward look and just kind of review what just happened. Review the person that it came from. Is this someone who always undermines you? Well, then that's a different conversation. But if it just happens every once in a while, maybe there's a reason behind it. Maybe they're just trying to do their job. And the way that they communicate a certain thing to you always just kind of rubs you the wrong way. And maybe it's just the way that they approach the conversation that's really rubbing you specifically the wrong way. And if you're having a hard time really looking at it and saying, where were their intentions? Where is this coming from? You can always go to a coworker and have this conversation with them. What's really important when we have these conversations with our coworkers is first, find a neutral party. Don't go to your best friend in the practice who's going to just rah and say like, you're always right. Like they're wrong, you're right. Let's get them. And you're going to gang up together. Go to that neutral person and really say, here's the situation that happened to me. What's your take on this? Like, am I reading into this? I took it really personal. I felt like I was undermined. What do you think about this? And just allow them to kind of give a little bit of their 2 cents, a little bit of insight to it. And you might hear them say, that's happened to me before too. Or, oh, you know what? I heard the doctor inform them that they should never let X, Y, or Z happen. And be like, oh, I never knew. So you can really gain some insight when you start asking questions, but make sure that you're not trying to create drama in the practice or gang up on this person. You're really just coming at it as, I don't think I understand this situation, and I think I need to find out more before I can have a conversation with this person. So really stay calm and just look at the situation as a situation that needs to be addressed, but first we need more information to get there. And then if you know the information, if this has happened 1,000 times, you already know, then you can go into a conversation.
There are going to be situations where you feel comfortable having the conversation right off because you have a great perspective, a good handle on the situation and why it could be misconstrued from various perspectives. But there's going to be times where, like Christina said, you're going to need to get a third-party perspective. Right. So finding someone in the practice that can really help you delve deeper into understanding why maybe someone that's in a different role in the practice may have perceived something differently or why they may be coming at it from a different kind of direction. Now, I really love, Brene Brown has a great way of dealing with kind of our own internal dialogue, because what happens is a lot of times in these situations, someone says something to us and it was not the way that we are misconstruing it. We don't do that intentionally. It's just we are all full of our own internal dialogue. Yeah. We all have concerns about how people may interpret us or what they might think about us or our ability to be competent or communicate, or our clinical efficiency. So we all have these little like insecurities that can be seeds in our own head for the conversations that we're having.
Especially when you're like caught off guard and someone makes you feel embarrassed too. Those are those really like, that's a really vulnerable feeling, to feel embarrassed and to do it in front of a patient. So that's instantly you're going to start telling a story that could be completely different than what someone is intending it to be.
Yeah, so Brene Brown's line is, the story that I'm telling myself is... Now, we don't have to use that in the dental practice. We don't have to walk up to someone and be like, the story that I'm telling myself is...
Or do it. It's just fun.
I mean, or you could. You could just see how they react. But you can even walk up and say, this is what it occurred. When it occurred, it made me feel this way. Was that the intent? And most times, people that are hearing this, like, that might not even be at all what was intended. Yeah. So in the situation where you walk someone up to the front and go to check them out, and someone who's helping you check them out is like, oh, well, I don't think, let me change the codes back. Like, their intent is not to make that the most difficult checkout process ever. It might be just that they were told that something has to be checked out a certain way, or maybe the frequency that you're scheduling the patient at doesn't align with insurance, and they've gotten 5 angry phone calls about past due balances or balances they weren't aware of in the last week. So they're trying to avoid maybe a situation that's stressful to them, and it was nothing that was directly targeted towards you.
Right.
So it gives them the chance to have that conversation with you, to say, oh, like, that wasn't my intention. My reasoning for doing that was this. But also approaching it in a disarming way. So the words that you use as you're approaching this, you really have to be selective in those as well.
Like Chastity said, the words that we use can be so impactful. It's really important that we don't use any aggressive words or any blame, shame feeling towards someone. Again, we don't know their story. We don't know the whole story. So if we could just take the perspective that they did not mean to make us upset and approach it that way, the way that we would communicate someone with that approach is much more differently than if we know that this person was just trying to be nasty. So even if you know that they were trying to be nasty, approach it like they weren't trying to. And what would that conversation look like? So we wouldn't say things like, you embarrassed me, you made me so angry, how dare you, I don't like when you do this. Using those really strong like I and you is really creating that disconnect, putting up that wall and saying you're here and I'm here and we have opposing views and we're going to fight about it. Versus approaching it with a we, it's really hard to put that wall there if we're talking about this together. So when this happened, it felt like I was being undermined. What can we do to make sure that this doesn't happen again? What can we do next time when we don't agree on coding? What can we do when we don't agree on this? What can we do when X happens? So if you ask it that way, you're just asking an open-ended question for this person to be able to give their point of view, to be able to say what they think needs to happen next time without necessarily saying that you did something wrong and you made me feel this way and creating that disconnect between you two.
Now, worst case scenario, after approaching it this way, best case scenario, they had no idea that what they did even made you feel that way. You're able to find a resolution and you can move forward.
Yeah.
Now, worst case scenario, the person doesn't care that it made you feel that way. They completely ignore your concerns as you voice it, and that behavior continues. So that's the worst case scenario. In those situations, that becomes more of a chronic challenge that's happening in the office. So making sure to still stay objective, but starting to document what happens. So making sure that you're keeping track of when those situations occur, being aware of if it's just happening to you or if this is something that's happening to multiple people, that other people in the office are experiencing it as well. And from an objective perspective.
I was gonna
not like, oh, she's like just always rude. Do you feel that way too?
Yeah.
But really making sure that it's objective, situational, because you're going to have to prepare to be able to bring this to someone, your boss or whoever is responsible for HR or the practice management in general. And you want to make sure that you have objective documentation for how it impacts your role in the practice and your productivity within the practice as well.
One of the rules that I always use is Don't say anything that you wouldn't feel comfortable saying in front of them. And that doesn't mean like if you're really comfortable with confrontation and aggression, don't use those kinds of words, but really something that you're comfortable with being on paper, that you would be comfortable basically speaking on a radio about and not having maljudgment from it. So make sure that whatever you're saying in regards to the situation and this person is something that you would feel completely comfortable in front of them, because more than likely, if this is going to get to that HR portion, that person is going to be brought in and you guys are going to be having the conversation together, and whatever you told this HR person is going to be brought up.
Once you have this meeting, the ideal outcome is that you're going to now have a plan in place. So there will be steps to be able to resolve the challenges that are affecting productivity and the culture within the practice. Make sure that you're anticipating there will be follow-up. There will likely be follow-up meetings as well with that person and then with HR or the doctor or whoever it is that you had brought the issue to initially.
Hopefully this helps you to be able to really take a look at those moments where you feel like you're being undermined and just look at things a little bit differently. Open up your perspective and see where are people coming from, why do people do what they do, and how can we address this and still keep that great team collaboration. Although, if any of you out there have someone who is consistently undermining you, maybe you've even worked through all of the steps that we've already given you, and you're at that point where you're like, what do I do next? We would love to hear your story. Tell us about what's going on in the practice and see what we can do to recommend the steps that you can take next to be able to have those really difficult conversations with them. I hope you liked this video. Make sure to leave us a comment, let us know your stories, and do not forget to subscribe to the Dental MD